Hey, this is Rustin Rose with Metalholic Magazine, and on the phone with me, Mr. David Sanchez of Havok. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing very well, sir. And you?
I am doing absolutely wonderful. Are you at home in Denver today?
I sure am, and the weather is very nice.
For all those people out there who don't know who you are yet, give us a little backstory on the band.
We are a fast and tight heavy metal band from Denver, Colorado. And we're a quartet. I play guitar and sing. And we also have another guitar player named Reese Scruggs, bass player named Jesse De Los Santos, and a drummer named Pete Weber. We started in 2004 and have been touring and writing music and kicking ass and taking names ever since.
Nice, nice. Now, you're the only original member left, correct?
Yes, sir.
What happened with Sean?
Sean bailed the day of our Primal Fear tour starting. Things are still unclear as to the exact reasons why, but he didn't show up for tour, and we had to leave anyway, so we did the tour as a three-piece and returned home and got a new guitar player.
And where'd you find Reese at?
Reese actually contacted us through MySpace. He sent us a message and basically said, did my page not load right, or do you guys need a new guitar player? And we wrote him back, and we were like, actually, we need a new guitar player, so if you're interested, send us a video or something. And he did, and it was all good and legit, so we had him come out here and do a tour with us and record the album, and here we are.
You got to wonder what makes a guy who's just really, getting ready to do a second album, signed to a label, just suddenly walk away from it all. That's insane.
Yeah, it happens, though. I mean, being in a band's not for everybody, and especially touring. Touring is definitely tough. It's not for everyone.
Takes a lot out of you. And then Pete is also the newest member, I believe. Where did you get him from?
Our drummer, Pete, actually joined the band before Reese did. He's from Boston, and when we were doing our drummer search, we put ads on Craigslist in just about every major city that we could. And weird enough, we got hit up from like 10 different dudes in the Boston area. We had more responses from Boston than from anywhere else. It was kind of weird. Pete hit us up and said, yo, I'm interested in the job, and said, cool, send us a tryout video. He did. It was awesome. So we got back to him and said, are you down to relocate and tour all the time and not make a lot of money? And he said, yeah. So that's how he joined the band.
Listening to the two albums, while they're both excellent, I really feel that time is up. The new album, the drums are a lot stronger, it sounds.
Totally. Pete's a really good drummer. He played with the Metal Blade band before called Ravage, but everything that I've heard from other people saw him playing Ravage, they all said he was a drummer, played too much for the songs and stuff, but in this band he gets to do basically whatever he wants, so there's a lot of room for doing crazy shit, and you can't really overplay anything in this band. I think this band likes to showcase our abilities and not dumb it down just for the sake of, getting a bigger listening audience or anything like that. We just do what we do, and if somebody wants to shred something, they should go ahead and do it.
Leave it all out on the stage.
Yep, pretty much. Let it all hang out. I mean, I think it's totally lame when there's a band that has a totally shredding guitar player, but they don't let him do anything cool in the band. That's right. Totally weak. When, and a lot of bands, I guess, would say, well, we're not that kind of band. There's no room for that in our music. And I'd say, bullshit, there totally is room for that in your music. You just got to let it flow.
Now, what element of your sound, of the Havok sound, do you feel sort of sets you apart from a lot of the other thrash bands out there today?
For starters, the very first thing that comes to mind is there's a shitload of slap bass on our album. You don't hear that in a lot of metal bands. But I think that, and I think with a lot of thrash bands, I'm mentioning the bass again, in a lot of thrash metal, the bass kind of just follows the guitars. In a lot of our stuff, the bass is totally independent, doing its own thing, creating harmonies and layering and changing chord progressions and stuff underneath the guitar riffs, which I think is cool. It's a lot more musical than a lot of bands play their stuff. But aside from that, the guitar riffs and everything, there are times where I'll take ideas from classic rock bands and put them into a metal song, and if you're really paying attention, you can totally hear some spots on the album where it sounds like Rush or Boston or, Kansas or something like that. But since a lot of classic rock is so metal anyways, you kind of don't tell. You kind of can't tell unless you're listening for it. Right. But I know me personally, there's a couple spots on the album I could totally pick out and say, doesn't that sound like Rush? Or, doesn't that kind of remind you of Boston?
Right. And obviously you've got a lot of different influences, on the album. And I know that, you started off with Metallica and the rest of the Big Four. And personally, yes. I heard a lot of Exodus, and I don't even know if you ever really listened to them or not. But
one of those different bands.
Yeah, see, and to me, they're part of what should be the Big Five, because they were there even before Metallica was. But
I agree.
So.
And on top of that, not only that, they're still pumping out really awesome albums.
Gary Holt's still sounding as good as ever, and great band. So it was good to hear sort of that influence show up in there as well. How did you end up getting into metal, though, when you're, from my understanding, your mom was sort of a Billy Joel, Elton John sort of. How did the familial influence get you to metal?
She was into, rock and roll and all that type of stuff, but, I mean, as a real young kid, that's what I remember overhearing on the radio and the tape player and stuff like that. But she was actually the one that recommended Metallica, because I was asking her one day, Mom, I want something heavy that's really, really in your face and heavy, but doesn't sound like Limp Bizkit or something. Because at the time, I was only exposed to MTV and the radio, and honestly, Limp Bizkit was the heaviest thing that I had ever heard. So I was like, man, I want something like that, but not that. And she was like, well, have you ever heard Metallica? And I said, no. And I went to the store and got a Metallica album, and that right there was the ultimate selling point for getting me into heavy metal.
Been off to the races ever since. It comes through on the album. The first one, Burn, was a great album, but Time Is Up is it's bruising. I mean, literally, you feel bruised after you've listened to it.
That's good. Mission accomplished.
Exactly. So now when you went into writing this album, I mean, you do most of the writing, but you've got Jesse in the band who, brings his special flavor with the bass, and you call him your Cliff Burton, if you will.
Yeah, but let's not go to Sweden in the winter on that note.
Exactly. So, I mean, does anybody else in the band get involved in the writing, or is it pretty much just you?
On this album, because we had lineup changes and, a lot of personnel in and out of the band throughout the, in between Burn and Time Is Up coming out, most of this album was written by me, just demoing stuff in my basement, recording guitar riffs, and then programming drums to it, and then writing bass lines. So I would say 75% of the album was written by me, but Jesse and Pete definitely helped out writing with and spicing things up. Anytime I show them a demo version that I've got, they'll say, well, we should do this here, and we should change this part right here. And, the outside opinions really, really help make the song cooler. And then Reese didn't come into the picture until after everything was all recorded, except for the solos. So when he got out here, he was hearing the songs for the very first time. And he wrote all the solos for the album in, I think, 3 days. Just sat in a room figuring out guitar solos over the course of about 3 days, and then tracked them all over the course of...
Yeah, and there's some unique parts on the album where the guitars do something that, like you said, with some of the classic rock, it sort of goes outside of what you would expect from the thrash genre, which does sort of set you guys apart from what everybody else is doing.
Right.